that pose danger or make Satan too angry, etc. And I happen to be one of them in that 16 years.
Wow.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
They gonna want to give me something because I want to hurt somebody. Now, this particular panel, psychiatry has really destroyed a lot of our entertainment. This board, and let me tell you, if you look at Martin Lawrence, y'all remember Martin Lawrence had an episode? He was on Psych. Cat Williams. We went and got Cat Williams. Cat Williams was doing a 100-city tour. And remember, Cat Williams, in his comedy skits, he used to make mockery of the pharmaceutical industry and Ritalin because he refused to put his children on psych meds. Then he ended up, his manager and a female accomplice had play with us. They start a gateway drug and you end up on all kind of other stuff. What's the gateway drug? So these are entertainers that have been destroyed. And now the asylums and the therapeutic assault is now aimed at our children. So we're going to look at this particular video. This one is dealing with.
This one is actually a one of the criminal sites.
Right. Okay. This is dealing with the criminal sites, these sites that have been found committing fraud, and they did it for money. Listen to this.
Is when usually a patient is hospitalized, psychologist will visit that person, shake hands with them, say, hello, I'm doctor, so I'm taking care of your problem. Hands and leaves. I have 10 or 20 patients, they bill an hour for each one. They might be in a hospital for a total of 30 minutes. So 20 patients, 20 hours. And they send the bills off to Medicaid. We see that most of the victims of recovered memory therapy were women who had excellent health insurance, whether it was government insurance or private insurance. Because many insurance policies wouldn't pay for this kind of long-term nonsense. So those people were targeted because of the nature of the insurance that they had. Every year, the U.S. psychiatric industry defrauds government and private insurance of $5 billion, using any means possible to deceive the public. There were some advertisements, medicine advertisements for people who lose weight. They were having problems losing weight. And they would be doing, all expenses paid to those that could hit a spa. But when we got to the spa, and when we signed in, there was a spa. It was a psychiatric center. When we came down, what they received is they received massive doses of non-altering drugs and kept for a lengthy period of time, and their chase carrier was billed tremendous amounts of money for something that was unnecessary.
But their lives go beyond the cycle board and into the courts, whereas fee witnesses, they will say anything to collect their fee.
A psychiatric expert who will have one opinion in one scenario and a completely opposite opinion in another scenario based on which law firm or governmental agency is paying for his time.
The psychiatrist on one hand will tell the public that suicide can be prevented, but will go into court and tell the jury that suicide cannot be prevented. And then what you show his prior and consistent statements, you also show that he is paid very well by pharmaceuticals. Then the jury says, you know what, we're not so sure about you. You didn't lie to us. And to degree, dishonesty, and deceitfulness, they're sex crimes. Contemporary studies have shown that at least 10% of psychiatrists committed sexual interventions against their patients.
It has happened so often that by the mid-80s, the insurance companies who insure physicians across America started writing sexual claims out of the policies altogether. That's how common it was.
So, there's more than 25,000 state claims have been registered, but nothing acted upon. When a psychiatrist has a patient, a young patient, and abused him sexually, there's a very high probability that there will. I've seen many cases where the mental health professional becomes very disturbed and is using very strange treatments, and that can go on for many years. And no one finding out about it because it's not very public. It's quite private. Things happen behind closed doors. Tragically, their sex crimes often involve children. Case in point, Dr. C. Markham Berry. On the surface, a well-respected member of his community. But all that shattered when he was arrested on child molestation charges. Fan loads of child pornography were removed from his home, and the subsequent investigation uncovered his sexual abuse of 4 patients. Boys aged 7 to 17, who he photographed and sodomized. All part of what the state called 50 years of very horrendous, undetected sexual escapades with children. This is not an isolated incident. It is the carefully masked character of new members of this profession. In every country throughout the world, you would well find psychiatrists committing rape, sexual abuse, murder, and fraud. And as you will see, psychiatry's entire credibility depends on the biggest fraud of all.
You see why they hate the Church of Scientology, huh? This is a very powerful field. Pharmacy and psychiatry together is a formidable entity. They got a lot of money. Brother D2, come and tell them what you told me. Something I want you to know as we was dealing with these prisoners and how they're baiting our brothers that's in these state prisons to get on these psych plans. Because the brothers have a hard time doing all the time that they have been given.
Just to bear witness to the facts that have been exposed. I was incarcerated for 16 years. During that time, of course, we all know it's a very stressful environment. So because of the stress level, it causes stress. And so a lot of times, because drugs or different drugs that they sought when they were incarcerated, to be slower than normal. It actually attacks the motor skills. And so when you think that it's giving you some calmness or relief inside the cell or on the yard, we start noticing the change, right? Because your social interaction is different. And so your times in reaction to people questioning you is different. And so based on that, it starts to attack you like that. Next thing you know, you're fidgety, you're doing all the things that the video had depicted for those who took those forms of medication as well. So I'm just a living testimony that that is true, because I was one of those individuals that they tried to do the testing on themselves. Another big thing that they do, the reason why they're able to get away with it is because those that are incarcerated are state property. And when you're state property, you lose rights. And inside this prison, we know millions of us are basically the new lab test dummies.
Yes.
For psychiatrists to do a lot of their testing. So I was just sharing that with Brother Minister Tony, that a third of the section of a book that's called the Title 15, which is California government codes that regulate the affairs of all state prisons, a third of that book is dedicated to psychiatry and medicine, where they perform the lobotomies, psychosurgeries, everything that the video depicted. So I just wanted to just take that minute to just bear witness, not just from the video, but from my own personal experience, that what Minister Tony Muhammad is sharing with us, family, is the truth.
Glad you're saying it with us, brother.
They're all free.
No, because many of those brothers come back and they're docile. Or when they come back, they're no longer on the psych meds, and then they have a psychotic episode where they just start killing.
Yes, sir.
So we have another one here.
This is the invention of the drug.
Yes. This is how they invented the diagnosis.
I was diagnosed with chemical imbalance, manic depression,
Contact disorder, ADHD, mild depression, major depression, borderline personality disorder, social shortage, depression, all these so-called diseases are just made up. They're just fabricated. They're fictions of psychiatry imagination. All what psychiatrists do without their labels. They couldn't pretend to be real doctors anymore, you know? Neither could psychologists, you know, diagnosing what God wanted me to do. Making diagnoses. Here's your treatment, a pill. But so far we're not proving that any so-called mental illnesses exist. These are labels. Yes, there they are. But without proof, we can't have credibility. So psychiatrists manufacture their own.
it's based on a broad bag of checklists for disorders that are published in a book called the DSM, which is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. There are no statistics in this book, by the way. It just makes it sound more scientific.
When creators talking about disease, and they wrote, is this a disease? All the things that the American Psychiatric Association is the publisher and owner, and wealthy owner of DSM, made a great deal of money on DSM. Since the first edition of the DSM, the number of mental disorders voted in the Psychiatry Diagnostic Manual has grown to 374. And with each new disorder, psychiatrists create yet another way to defraud the public. There are 27 ways to develop DSM, that's 27 ways to go. You know, 300 and 200 ways to go. So you can pretty much find anyone walking on the street that can fit into a DSM somehow. When you go to that show somebody, you can't say a word, you're down to a number. And they have numbers. One of the most ridiculous things. You're like, I'll handle with your mother. Or peeing in the bed. Adolescent rebellion disorder is an official psychiatric diagnosis. Arithmetic learning disorder is an official psychiatric diagnosis. General anxiety disorder is a recent diagnosis. The psychiatric industry takes advantage of that. They say, wow, we can get these things categorized, make it look scientific, so let's label everything. Now we have a label for it, we put a code. Have you ever seen a medical insurance form? Everything's covered. In DSM, it just looks like it's some natural numbers. Of course, what we're talking about is true version for mental health as an illness. The more types of coding, the more types of illnesses you can come up with, the more claims can be made, and the more reasons for treatment, and the more reasons for revenue for the psychiatric establishment, for the hospitals, and of course, the pharmaceutical companies. While presenting the DSM to the world as scientific fact, psychiatrists freely invest in spite of lack of science. We have no diagnostic reliable markers for almost any illness worse than the DSM.
What we're testing for in psychiatry, it's hard to say because there's nothing specific.
As far as test, it's clinically useful. Basically, we're not there yet.
We don't have any laboratory tests that we can use to determine whether somebody does have mental illness.
No good biological test for detecting mental illness.
There is no test with no biopsy you can do. There is no chemical test right now.
Let's listen to this test. So some part of the diagnosis or shows an improvement, like any blood test or any X-rays or anything like that.
Oh, and when I first I don't do any tests, I just speak with people and listen to them, and then I make a decision on what kind of illness. These diagnoses vary as widely as the psychiatrist who makes them. In this hidden camera footage, a person visited several different psychiatrists complaining of the same symptoms.
I'm extremely unorganized and I didn't used to be. It's caused problems in the family, it's caused problems getting I'm self-employed.
We're probably and unfortunately, it's not going to rest.
They have brain injury disorders out today.
You have a wonderful symptoms of possession.
So it seems like there's a picture. What that means is that you got some of the different symptoms and some, high symptoms. So
We're going to use I don't know why that and children work great by the
We love the work that we need. And as far as medications, I would recommend that you start a medication which Prozac, Zerlon, Paxil, Celexa.
it's a bad condition for that. Works on depression also.
the treatment for any bipolar training is study.
Grandma's, check it out. Body training.
Equal choice.
Making it antidepressant also is a good factor.
We don't know if I give you a medication if it's going to work or not. To a certain degree, it's trial and error.
I'm gonna pause this right quick. Did y'all catch what was happening?
Yeah.
There was one patient that went to several doctors. And each one saw something different,
See,
all right? And each one prescribed a different medication. Now, if I have a disorder, why didn't all of the psychiatrists diagnose the same thing?
come on, good question.
This is why it's dangerous when somebody says you got a mental disease or a disorder. They should have looked under a microscope, saw the same disease, prescribed the same medicine. One person tried to put him on almost 8 different pills.
Yes, sir.
This is pseudoscience, brothers and sisters. This is why they hate the Nation of Islam. This is why they attack CCHR. They hated the fact that we came in contact with L. Ron Hubbard because he absolutely wanted to destroy this industry.
Yes, sir.
And I don't blame him.
Yes, sir.
And we with him on that.
That's right.
We're with him on that. But we are the target. And they're making it so unbearable in our community, and they got so many people looking like they're naturally crazy. You're gonna start doing like we did with gang members. Do something about all these mental people.
Yes, sir.
They caused it.
Yes, sir.
Then they're gonna come in wholesale and start wiping away and taking away your rights. Now, our sisters that's in Watts and in the housing projects, right now, in order for them to get government help, each one of their child will have to go to a psychiatrist who will write them on psych meds. We're in trouble. So I just wanted to stop it because I wanted you all to know what you was just looking at. Because I saw some of y'all nod. Anyway, you can go ahead and play.
I have cured a lot of my patients with challenged by our lack of knowledge.
In fact, we don't know what goes on in the most common illnesses we do not know the cause.
It would be nice to know exact reasons for disorders, but we didn't do that.
I'm the director of research at the American Psychiatric Association. We don't know the etiology of really any of the mental disorders at the present time.
The crime has grown to 10 times its original size, and it labels everybody. I can find 5 diagnoses that would fit you or anybody else in there.
Compare this to the research methods of pathology, a real science that discovers real diseases using a wide variety of precise diagnostic tests. We do millions of laboratory tests as well as the structural examination, the microscopic examination. It's a whole series of applied scientific procedures. In the case of psychiatry, there isn't any laboratory tool that can precisely identify a psychiatric disease allowed to be classified.
It's not as if there's some study of tissue or some study of the body or some study of matter. These are all categories which are made up. They're simply made up, and they don't exist in nature. They're decided on by psychiatrists and voted on.
Psychiatrists are not the only ones who benefit from the DSM. Wherever you find a psychiatric diagnosis, you'll find a psychiatric drug.
The pharmaceutical corporations now have given enormous sums of money for the education of psychiatric residents and for the support of research by their professors, so that psychiatry today has become in America, has become very largely ordering which drug to use with which disease or disorder.
This to me is completely unethical, untenable, unacceptable for this to occur. The web of money is all over the place. It has compromised psychiatry, and now it's compromising psychology, and worst of all, it's compromising the nation.
In 2006, a study revealed that 56% of all psychiatrists deciding what disorders to list in their diagnostic manual had financial ties to drug companies. Today, we see the consequences, a barrage of drugs, each one targeted at an invented disorder that is backed by an arbitrary diagnosis found in the DSM.
The fact that it is couched in the language of science, without necessarily having any about the scientific data or underpinnings to justify it, is as threatening as anything we seem to do.
And psychiatry's latest and most expensive ploy to fool the public by imitating legitimate medicine: brain scans.
We can scan all the brains that we want to. The fact that we see changes in different people's brains, changes in functioning, doesn't mean that we've discovered anything that has its origin in the brain. It just means that we're seeing changes, but it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with the brain.
They have no reliable measures about precise blood flow patterns for any of the psychiatric disorders using any of the scans.
It's marketing, this is not science, this is incredibly effective marketing, and it's nothing to do with science.
Psychiatrists and psychologists use the DSM to label 450 million people worldwide as mentally ill, a total equal to the populations of France, Italy, Germany, Canada, the United Kingdom, and Russia combined. While sales of the psychiatric drugs they push have topped $84 billion annually, funding for world governments for these patients grows psychiatry over $250 billion a year. And much of this money comes from the diagnosis and drugging of our most trusted and vulnerable.
Incredible, huh? We're gonna move to the next one, and this is it. While we're setting up there, remember, brothers and sisters, Master Farad Muhammad saw himself pushing the Rockefellers, the DuPonts. The Rockefeller Foundation and the DuPonts, they set up most of your pharmaceutical industry. they have high investments in these companies, okay?
Yes,
We're gonna go to the next and last display, dealing with the epidemic disorders and the sale of drugs, now betraying and drugging children.
We have swallowed all manner of poisonous certainties fed us by our parents and school teachers. If the race is to be freed from its crippling burden of good and evil, it must be psychiatrists who take the original responsibility.
Brock Chisholm's declaration typified the psychiatric onslaught aimed directly at our school system.
They actually said the purpose was social control, not to pass on knowledge, not to give him something so that he can go into the world of work.
In 1950, psychiatrists and psychologists from around the world met at the White House to propose a total reorientation of the public school system.
The White House Conference on Mental Health in the 1950s was a landmark that served to bolster the idea that schools would serve their communities better as mental health clinics than they would as institutions of learning.
In the early 60s, the world of psychiatry started to really go places in this country. Little by little, it came into our schools, our educational system.
And by 1965, it was written into law. Psychiatrists were given the green light for the wholesale labeling and drugging of school children.
A child is labeled ADD or ADHD the minute he can't sit still for a 10-15 minute period of time, or he talks constantly, or ignores the teacher completely. That will get him and earn him the ADD or ADHD label.
The labeling of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, went into full swing in 1987. Within 1 year, 500,000 American children would be diagnosed as ADHD. By 1997, that number had soared to 4.4 million. In response to widespread public alarm at this apparent epidemic of mental disease, the U.S. government-funded National Institutes of Health assembled a panel of prominent doctors and psychiatrists to explain to parents and educators exactly what ADHD was.
I would like any member of the panel to describe a typical ADHD in terms of symptomatology. Mark, would you like to? Since you see them in your practice.
I mean, I think the panel has been frank, and you know, the difficulties here are immense in terms of these. I mean, it is hard. It's very hard to know how to answer this question. They cannot, you know, even when. They are as driven by motive. There are some good clinical descriptions. And I think, you know, I think the part of the problem is the profession keeps changing the diagnosis.
At this time, we do not have a diagnostic test for ADHD. Therefore, the validity of the disorder continues to be a problem.
But this shocking admission did not stop school psychiatrists. 2 years later, the number of American students diagnosed with ADHD had shot up to 6 million. Today, 20 million children worldwide are labeled with some form of mental disorder, a diagnosis often made in a matter of minutes.
We would sit behind a two-way mirror along with the parents. We would then look at the child. We would do small manipulative activities with them to see where their deficit was. It was wrong what we were doing. We were looking at a 5-minute glimpse of this child's life and saying, okay, here you go. Here's a little pill, take it, you'll be fine.
Those little pills, like Ritalin,
Adderall, and Concerta are classified by the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration as highly addictive substances, right along with cocaine, opium, and methamphetamine.
When I was on the Ritalin, it made me just feel like totally different, like I wasn't who I was.
I was, flipping out, was twitching, going crazy.
I felt like I was out of it all the time, like I wasn't there, I wasn't human. You're just a zombie, pretty much. You do what you can and just to get by and just don't do anything extra.
My mother never teased me, but she thought I really had ADHD and I was wrong, and I had something wrong with me. So I thought she'd feel bad and feel sorry for me if I died, but then again, I thought that she would miss me a lot, and I also love her a little more than I wanted to kill myself. And so I stopped when I realized that.
The abundance of prescription medications created a new income source for kids, selling their meds to their schoolmates.
It's called kitty cocaine. They take the Ritalin and they just repackage it and they sell it on campus to the kids because it's like speed.
I figured that if I was gonna do drugs, I might as well make it worth it. And I ended up doing street drugs, and then I ended up getting into it really bad.
We're looking at marijuana and other things as being gateway drugs. And actually, the so-called medications are a greater gateway drug.
The Ritalin drugs are backfiring big time because if the child is already disruptive and he takes cocaine, he's going to be a lot more disruptive after he's taken it. It is not going to calm him down.
Boom, she got on the drugs and her personality changed, her behaviors changed, it became erratic and dark and violent, and it was just a nightmare.
He kept having adverse reactions, becoming very, very angry. He could not control his behavior, he couldn't control his temper. He was on 5 different psych meds, Prozac and lithium, and he was 7 years old. And he was unable to function. He would have rages and then crying and all kinds of just violent rages, grabbing knives and all of this.
The list includes 15-year-old Kip Kinkle withdrawing from Prozac when he shot 22 classmates, killing 2 after murdering his mother and stepfather at his home in Springfield, Oregon. 18-year-old Jason Hoffman on Effexor and Celexa. He opened fire at his California high school, wounding 5. 15-year-old Sean Cooper on a mix of antidepressants when he shot students in Idaho. And 17-year-old Eric Harris on Luvox when he and partner Dylan Klebold killed 12 classmates and a teacher in the bloodiest school massacre yet, Columbine.
And all of this overshadows the very reason children came to school in the first place, to get an education. Since 1970, the United States has fallen from 9th to 26th place in worldwide academic standing, while during that same period, the number of American school children labeled with learning, behavioral, and mental disorders skyrocketed, and the sales of ADHD drugs has multiplied 118 times.
Children don't ask for psychiatrists. Children don't ask to be diagnosed. They don't want to be called crazy. So you have to ask the classic Roman question, legal question, cui bono, who benefits? The people who make the diagnosis.
Is that it?
One more,
Yes.
on the masterminds of this.
Last one, brothers and sisters. I mean, that's incredible, the amount of drugs they're putting on children on. Now, every time there's a shooting, like in Vegas, that man was on site. The child in Florida, they was on site meds, but you never hear CNN, ABC, or CBS report that. Because right now on TV, 70% of all of your television news, or even if it's a program, is supported by the pharmaceutical industry. They pay for the commercials. So that's what we're dealing with right now, man. So let's check out this last one and then
Psychiatry should actually go into government, that politicians should listen to psychiatrists. Psychiatrists should be in every parliament and should direct and monitor political activities.
Psychiatry, in little more than a century, has infiltrated society on a global scale, and not by accident.
People aren't aware that in 1940, a prominent British psychiatrist, Colonel J.R. Rees, addressed the National Council on Mental Hygiene and set the agenda for psychiatry for the next 60 years. Since then, psychiatrists have been given authority in nearly every sector of our society, with tragic results.
We must aim to make it permeate every educational activity in our national life. Public life, politics, and industry should all of them be within our sphere of influence. We have made a useful attack upon a number of professions. The two easiest of them, naturally, are the teaching profession and the church. The most difficult are law and medicine.
Rees's colleague, psychiatrist G. Brock Chisholm, co-founder of the World Federation for Mental Health, later expanded upon psychiatry's plans.
To achieve world government, it is necessary to remove from the minds of men their individualism, loyalty to family traditions, national patriotism, and religious dogmas.
To implement their master plan, American psychiatrists convinced the U.S. Congress that mental illness was a national threat that only they, with vast increases in funding, could solve. And thus began massive U.S. government expenditures for psychiatric research, which have climbed from $1 million a year in 1946 to $1.4 billion today, an increase of more than 139,000%. As psychiatric influence spread across America, it also spread throughout the world. Behind crisis after world crisis, you'll find the handiwork of psychiatry. Example, Serbian psychiatrist Jovan Raskovic, who demanded the ethnic cleansing of Croats and Muslims because of his firm belief in their racial inferiority. The result, Bosnia in the 1990s, where Raskovic's colleague, psychiatrist Radovan Karadzic, and Prime Minister Slobodan Milosevic established Balkan concentration camps, where the mass torture, rape, and murder of the innocent happened once more. One military psychiatrist explained how it was done.
C'est très difficile tuer millions de personnes. C'est très difficile, techniquement difficile. Les Allemands étaient bons techniciens et ils ne pouvaient pas, ils pouvaient seulement 6 millions de Juifs exterminés. Ils massacrent, par exemple, 100 ou 200 de personnes, ou violent 100 femmes et 100 jeunes filles, pour que les autres soient effrayés et échappent. Alors, vous avez le terrain pur.
With century-old Pavlovian conditioning, coupled with modern-day mind control techniques, psychiatrists and psychologists can turn average men, and even children, into mass murderers.
You could train them to use firearms indiscriminately. You could train them to shoot people with very little feeling or thought. You could train them to use abusive and brutalizing procedures in order to obtain information with no hesitancy, with no concern.
This is how terrorists are created. In the wake of 9/11, Osama bin Laden was characterized as the mastermind behind the attacks. But the acknowledged brain trust and commander of Al-Qaeda is Ayman al-Zawahiri, educated in psychology and pharmacology at the University of Cairo, and the author of the Al-Qaeda training manual on the use of coercive psychiatry. And orchestrating the terrorist bombings in Madrid, Abu Hafiza, another Al-Qaeda operative, relying on those same techniques to manipulate the minds of men.
You can implant memories. Memories are potent sources of motivated behavior. If you implant enough memories of specific kinds, you can shape and change the nature of human thinking and feelings.
And it was thought to be a kind of ultimate weapon, because what greater weapon could there be than control of the human mind?
You can control minds and you can move people around, particularly when you control their lives. It's easier to control their minds.
When we look at psychiatry and psychology, social control is the primary agenda.
And that agenda is being put in place throughout the world right now, using mental health screening campaigns fed to the public under such innocuous sounding names as Teen Screen.
The national government is actually encouraging it and wanting to test every single kid in our public school system.
All children are put under this kind of a test for psychiatric evaluation. A 10-minute test, it tells them absolutely nothing.
I predict that upwards of 90% of all the people screened will be diagnosed as having a psychiatric disorder, which means that we'll have an entire generation that will be a perfect profit center.
The man behind the Teen Screen program, psychiatrist David Schaffer, consultant to the U.S. Department of Defense.
They're not just screening children to have complete control of the 52 million children in school. They're screening now, and that bill, they will screen their parents, and they will screen all adults in America.
The idea of mass screening for mental illness in the American population, run by government initiative, is one of the scariest ideas I ever heard of.
Psychiatry is politics, has always been politics. It is politics pure and simple, because politics, psychiatry was always the application of force against people who don't want to be forced.
It's a sad thing, and parents better wake up. Society better wake up, because we're in serious trouble if they don't.
Psychiatry's master plan to infiltrate all sectors of society is becoming a reality. We don't have an epidemic of mental illness. We have an epidemic of psychiatry. Something can and must be done about it.
Well, brothers and sisters, that ends the tour of this aspect of my presentation. Also, it brings an end to 8 weeks worth of research and teaching that I've been doing. Now, those who are watching in any city or country, if you desire that we come to your country and do a presentation or city, just inbox me in my Facebook page or go to any of my other social media pages. But the reason why I wanted us to see this, so that we'll have the actual facts. Because when Minister Farrakhan went through the CCHR museum, I mean, he was livid. And he said, we have to do something about this. Well, it's taken me upwards to 9 years to really get involved. And personally, I'm taking this on as a crusade. This and vaccines, I gotta warn our community throughout the world on what this terrible industry called psychiatry. Because in this, you see how now they're supposed to control what? The mind. Not just the minds, but all politics. See? Because now to have 52 million children under psych meds, they're saying 90% of our children are going to be on psych meds. Go get a movie called Equilibrium. In that movie, it's talking about every human being in America will have to be on psych meds, and this is why they have this contraption called electroceuticals, that when you take a pill, it enlarges in your stomach, so if you don't take your psych meds, an alarm will go off, and they will force it on you. You can sleep this and say, oh, this will never happen. You can do that if you want to, not me. So I thank you for being patient. I thank you for going through this. I thank CCHR. Let's give a hand to CCHR for the things that you're doing. To the hood. And in September, we're going to go on a full tour. We're going to try to take as many buses up to the CCHR Museum in September. Thank you. May God bless you. Assalamu alaikum. Anybody have any questions? Any questions? It's a good class. I like that. I can go home then.
I want to thank you.
You're welcome, dear brother. On your way out the door, get as much of the free material as possible so you can educate your family, okay? Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you. Walaikum salam.
I know he doesn't remember me.
Yes, I do.
You do?
Yes.
Ooh,
watch it, sis. Gotta go around.
Oh, sure do. I can dismount.
Not my stuff. My wife is the director. They come direct. So call me, brother. All right.
I need more DVDs.
Where you parked at? Okay. No, it's right.
Okay. Here's industry.
I don't know. Hey, but brother, you know what? I'm supposed to get me a new computer, which means nothing to you, I know. But I didn't have. Well, you want this? Yeah, because I haven't been able to edit and do all stuff. What you got in your hands, man? Because just my program, Adobe, it can take up most of my RAM.
Should be there too, somewhere.
On the computer I got, I really got some upgrades. I'm getting doing an upgrade.
Right here.
16 to 32 gig computer.
What's going on, my friend?
Couple terabytes.
Exactly the struggle, huh?
Anyway, I'll be able to do things in a timely fashion. So I need to be able to connect into something. It does real good video. HDMI? Yeah. Okay. Because it would be real nice to have everything uniformed like that.
Yeah, right. And then I'm gonna get a graphics program. So we can put names on it and all.